Arcadia, Scene 4. Hannah and Valentine. Hannah reading aloud from Thomasina's Primer. Hands Valentine. The lesson book. I don't know what it means except mathematically. It's an iterated algorithm. Well, Jesus. It's an algorithm that's been iterated. How am I supposed to? The left-hand pages are graphs of what the numbers are doing on the right-hand pages, but all on different scales. Each graph is a small section of the previous one blown up, like you'd blow up a detail of a photograph, and then a detail of the detail, and so on, forever. Or in her case, till she ran out of pages. The maths isn't difficult. It's what you did at school. You have some x and y equation. Any value for x gives you a value for y. So you put a dot where it's right for both x and y, then you take the next value for x, which gives you another value for y, and when you've done that a few times, you join up the dots, and that's your graph of whatever the equation is. No, not exactly, not at all. What she's doing is every time she works out a value for y, she's using that as her next value for x, and so on, like a feedback. She's feeding the solution back into the equation and then solving it again. Iteration, you see. Well, it is a bit. It's the technique I'm using on my grouse numbers, and it hasn't been around for much longer than, well, call it 20 years. Pause. And sit down. I have no idea. I thought you were doing the hermit. There's a lot of stuff around. Gus loves going through it. No old masters or anything. Septimus Hodge. Why should there be a reason? How would I know? I'm not cross. When your Thomasina was doing maths, it had been the same maths for a couple of 1,000 years, classical, and for a century after Thomasina. Then maths left the real world behind, just like modern art, really. Nature was classical, maths was suddenly Picasso's, but now nature is having the last laugh. The freaky stuff is turning out to be the mathematics of the natural world. Still sitting down. For example, well, no, of course she bloody couldn't. Actually, I'm doing it from the other end. She started with an equation and turned it into a graph. I've got a graph, real data, and I'm trying to find the equation which would give you the graph if you use it the way she's used hers, iterated it. It's how you look at population changes in biology. Goldfish in a pond, say. This year there are X goldfish, next year there'll be Y goldfish. Some get born, some get eaten by herons, whatever. Nature manipulates the X and turns it into Y. Then Y goldfish is your starting point population for the following year, just like Thomasina. Your value for X becomes your next value for Y. The question is, what is being done to X? What is the manipulation? Whatever it is, it can be written down as mathematics. It's called an algorithm. The details change. You can't keep tabs on everything. It's not nature in a box, but it isn't necessary to know the details. When they're all put together, it turns out the population is obeying a mathematical rule. Yes, no, the numbers. It's not about the behavior of fish. It's about the behavior of numbers. This thing works for any phenomenon which eats its own numbers. Measles epidemics, rainfall averages, cotton prices. It's a natural phenomenon in itself. Spooky. I don't know yet. I mean, it does undoubtedly. It's hard to show. There's more noise with grouse. Distortions, interference, real data is messy. There's 1,000 acres of moorland that had grouse on it. Always did until about 1930. But nobody counted the grouse. They shot them. So you count the grouse they shot. But burning the heather interferes. It improves the food supply. A good year for foxes interferes the other way. They eat the chicks. And then there's the weather. It's all very, very noisy out there. Very hard to spot the tune. Like a piano in the next room. It's playing your song. But unfortunately, it's out of whack. Some of the strings are missing, and the pianist is tone deaf and drunk. I mean, the noise. Impossible. You start guessing what the tune might be. You start to pick it out of the noise. You try this, you try that. You start to get something. It's half-baked, but you start putting it in notes which are missing or not quite the right notes, and bit by bit, dum-de-dum-dum-dum-dum, dum-de-dum-dum-dum-dum, dum-de-dum-dum, dear Valentine, dum-de-dum-dum to you. The lost algorithm. Pause. I publish. That's the theory. Grouse are bastards compared to goldfish. Stand up to pick up the primer. The game books, my true inheritance, 200 years of real data on a plate. Well, that's what a game book is. I'm only using from 1870 when butts and beaters came in. Oh yes, further. No, really, I promise you. Not a schoolgirl living in a country house in Derbyshire in 18-something. She was just playing with the numbers. The truth is she wasn't doing anything. Doodling, nothing she understood. Yes, well, a piano. Pick up the algebra book, i.e. the primer. To me it is. Pictures of turbulence, growth, change, creation. It's not a way of drawing an elephant, for God's sake. Pick up the apple. So you couldn't make a picture of this leaf by iterating, or what's it? Sorry. Oh yes, you could do that. If you knew the algorithm, and I sit down here, by the way. If you knew the algorithm and fed it back, say, 10,000 times, each time there'd be a dot somewhere on the screen. You'd never know where to expect the next dot, but gradually you'd start to see the shape, because every dot would be inside the shape of this leaf. It wouldn't be a leaf, it would be a mathematical object, but yes, the unpredictable and the predetermined unfold together to make everything the way it is. It's how nature creates itself, on every scale. The snowflake and the snowstorm, it makes me so happy to be at the beginning again, knowing almost nothing. People were talking about the end of physics. Relativity and quantum looked as if they were going to clean out the whole problem between them. A theory of everything. But they only explain the very big and the very small. The universe, the elementary particles, the ordinary side stuff, which is our lives, the things that people write poetry about, clouds, daffodils, waterfalls, and what happens in a cup of coffee when the cream goes in. These things are full of mystery, as mysterious to us as the heavens were to the Greeks. We're better at predicting events at the edge of the galaxy, or inside the nucleus of an atom, than whether it will rain on Auntie's garden party 3 Sundays from now, because the problem turns out to be different. We can't even predict the next drip from a dripping tap when it gets irregular. Each drip sets up the conditions for the next. The smallest variation blows a prediction apart, and the weather is unpredictable in the same way. It will always be unpredictable. When you push the numbers through the computer, you can see it on the screen. The future is disorder. A door like this has cracked open 5 or 6 times since we got up on our hind legs. It's the best possible time to be alive when almost everything you thought you knew was wrong. Pause. I don't know. He makes it up. It's what my mother calls them, only she means it. Last year some expert had her digging in the wrong place for months to find something or other, the foundations of Capability Brown's boathouse, and Gus put her right first go. Oh yes, until he was 5. You've never asked about him. You get high marks here for good breeding. English bards and Scotch reviewers. A penciled superscription. Listen and kiss my cycle clips. O harbinger of sleep, who missed the press, and hoped his drone might thus escape redress. The wretched cheater bard of Eros couch, for his narcotic let my pencil vouch. You see, you have to turn over every page. Oh, come on. Christ, what do you want? Quite right. Who are you talking about? Proof? Proof! You'd have to be there, you silly bitch. I say, you're speaking of my fiancé. And a letter. I said he was dead. What year? 1810. Oh my God, 1810. Well done, Hannah. Are you going to tell me it's a different Mrs. Chater? Charity, charity. Deny what can it be proven for charity's sake? She won't let anyone kiss her. You see, they wrote, they scribbled, they put it on paper. It was their employment, their diversion. Paper is what they had, and there will be more. There is always more. We can find it. The aristocratic friend of the tutor under the same roof as the poor sod whose book he savaged. The first thing he does is seduce Chater's wife. All is discovered. There's a duel. Chater dead. Byron fled. P.S. Guess what? The widow married her ladyship's brother. Do you honestly think no one wrote a word? How could they not? It dropped from sight, but we will write it again. Well, it's very fair. Generous. Sit down. Prudent. Chater could have died of anything anywhere. Sorry, yeah. But he fought a duel with Byron. I'll tell you your problem. No guts. By which I mean a visceral belief in yourself. Gut instinct, the part of you which doesn't reason. The certainty for which there is no back reference, because time is reversed. Tock-tick goes the universe and then recovers itself. But it was enough, and you were in there, and you bloody know. Are you talking about Lord Byron the poet? No, you fucking idiot. We're talking about Lord Byron the chartered accountant. Oh, well, he was here, all right, the poet. Silence. He's in the game book. I think he shot a hare. I read through the whole lot once when I had mumps. Some quite interesting people. It's not the one I'm using too early, of course. They've always been in the commode. Ask Chloe. Hannah goes to give him a kiss. Chloe! My mother's lent him her bicycle. Lending one's bicycle is a form of safe sex, possibly the safest there is. My mother is in a flush about Bernard, and he's no fool. He gave her a first edition of Horace Walpole, and now she's lent him a bicycle. Can I keep this for a while? Talking about the primer, the lesson book, and the diagram. Gus enters. Yes, finished. Coming now. I'm trying to work out the diagram. You couldn't see to look before. The electronic calculator was what the telescope was for Galileo. There wasn't enough time before. There weren't enough pencils. This took I don't know how many days, and she hasn't scratched the paintwork. Now she'd only have to press a button, the same button over and over, iteration, a few minutes, and one I've done in a couple of months with only a pencil. The calculation would take me the rest of my life to do again. Thousands of pages, tens of thousands, and so boring. All right, Gus, I'm coming. We're going to get out the dressing up box. Stand up and shout. No, I'm saying you'd have to have a reason for doing it. Gus runs out. He hates people shouting. Well, the other thing is you'd have to be insane. End of scene.